Hello everyone, Wayne Motts, the President Emeritus and Historian at the Gettysburg Foundation with our friends from the Eisenhower National Historic Site. I'm joined on my left, to your right, Mike Florer, the Curator of Eisenhower National Historic Site, and on my right, to your left, Dan Vermilya, Park Ranger, and boy, we've got a special behind the scenes at Gettysburg National Military Park for you, and we're at the Museum and Visitor Center in the curatorial offices, and we have some items in front of us that are going to be part of an Eisenhower exhibit that they're putting together temporarily for the month of September 2024 for World War II weekend. And before we start, though, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about the collection that Eisenhower National Historic Site has? How big is it? This is collections of artifacts. What is it? Why don't you give us a little background on it?
Okay, we have a fairly extensive collection at Eisenhower National Historic Site with over 60,000 items. And if you take the tour, you can see all the stuff in the Eisenhower home, but that's just the beginning. We have lots of stuff in storage, and we have lots of farm machinery and some barns and other outbuildings.
So some of these things are small, and then some of these things are, what is the biggest artifact? And we're not counting the house. What is the biggest? Yeah. Okay, we're not counting the house and barn. They're big. We're not counting that. What's the biggest thing do you think?
Biggest thing? That would be a toss-up between a combine and a presidential limousine.
A combine and a presidential limousine that are about the same. All right, and then you also have paper. So do you have letters that Eisenhower wrote? And what are the objects, the bulk of the collection, and paper less, or would you have more paper, you think, just out of curiosity?
Probably more objects, but it's close to half and half.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a lot of
60,000, and wow, and you've got, and I'm going to ask the same question because I've done videos with Greg and the curatorial staff here, so I'm going to ask them the same question I ask. I'm going to ask you guys the same question I asked them. So, and I didn't prep this ahead of time, but I want to know, of the 60,000 objects at Eisenhower, what is your favorite? And then we're going to go over here and ask Dan his favorite. So go ahead.
Ooh, my
you
favorite.
have a favorite. There's 60,000 things over there.
I'll say my favorite is what I think is the most significant item, and that's the fireplace mantle in the living room of the Eisenhower home. That was at one time in the White House when Abraham Lincoln was president.
Now, this is something I didn't know. You're kidding me. So the mantle of the fireplace in the Eisenhower home came out of the White House.
It did.
Was there. Oh,
yeah, Lincoln was there. Lincoln may have touched it.
All right, so you got to get over to the Eisenhower National Historic Site. You got to get in the house and you got to look at this mantle. Be sure you ask
That's
for that.
very
wow,
fancy.
that's pretty cool. How about you, Dan? What do you?
You know, I'd say if I'm going to go for the significance factor, probably the Korea coffee table in the living room, a gift from Francesca Rhee, First Lady of South Korea, to Mamie Eisenhower in 1954. But in storage, we have these things, not nearly as significant, but I think they're really cool. Mike probably knows what I'm going to talk about. There are these big yellow lit up, basically portable lights that the Secret Service would use to light up the helipad at the farm for when the president's helicopter was coming in. Not like a famous gift from anybody. I just think they're cool.
Well, we got to go out there. We got to do something on that.
Yeah.
We got to see those. We've got to see these, and we've got to plan to have that. But wow, that's pretty. That's pretty cool. That's pretty good. I would have thought it had been a World War II object for you. I'd have thought. For you, I wasn't quite sure, but I was throwing out that.
The Secret Service angle's cool.
Yeah,
so,
that's
absolutely.
right. And you've got to get. You've got to think about all of that. So there's planning exhibit. Mike, you're planning exhibit for World War II weekend. That'll be a temporary exhibit in the Museum and Visitor Center at Gettysburg National Military Park, Eisenhower National Historic Site at 1195 Baltimore Pike, so the main visitor center. And you're planning this for how long, Mike?
It'll go up in early September and be up for the rest of that month.
Okay, for September of 2024. Now, this video is going to live longer than that, so the objects that are on the table, you're going to see longer than that. But you need to get yourself over for that. Hopefully, you can come over World War II weekend, and we're going to end, Dan. We'll make sure we hit a little bit. We've got some wonderful objects here that are on the table. Let's start on the viewer's left, and Sarah will come in later. We'll get some B-roll. We'll get some close-ups of this. But we've got some airdrop leaflets here. Who wants to take a shot at that?
I can speak to those.
All right.
Those are great examples of psychological warfare. So The one with the red frame is bilingual in English and German, and that was dropped on German troops, offering them safe conduct if they would surrender, trying to convince them to surrender, and if they did, they'd be well cared for and receive medical treatment if needed, and food and shelter. And it's got a facsimile signature of Dwight Eisenhower.
Yeah. All right, and then this right here?
That one was entirely in French, but it's a message from Eisenhower to the French people. I mean, at the top it says citizens of France. And it's urging them to be patriotic and follow the orders of the Supreme Commander. And when victory is had, then they'll be free to create their own new government.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was actually found in a woman's yard in France.
But I just, I'm a material culture guy too. Everybody knows that this is material culture. This is, to me, these are the last vestiges of what we have. Is slowly but surely, these men are dying off in very large numbers. And Dan, you know the statistics. It will not be long, unfortunately, that these men and women who served this country, so many millions of them during the Second World War, won't be here. But what's going to be left are these things. And that's why they're important. Not just the places that the people were at, but these items as well. Let's go right here to the artifacts. These are original artifacts from the beaches of France, right?
Yeah, these are from Normandy, from Omaha Beach, part of the Eisenhower National Historic Site collection. You have some .50 caliber rounds here, the larger rounds, barbed wire from Pointe du Hoc, part of the German Atlantic Wall, where the Third Reich is basically covering the entire coastline of France with mines, barbed wire. There's cement bunkers and gun positions everywhere. So this is a small piece of that. If you go back to Normandy today, you can still see there is some barbed wire in places along the coast. You'll also find some of those gun bunkers as well. Defensive placements. And then we also have a couple .30 caliber rounds as well as an en bloc clip. Those would have been used for the M1 Garand rifle, basic rifle carried by American GIs in the Second World War. George Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. Could fire 8 rounds for one of these clips, and we have 3 rounds on display right here. So you think about just the sheer volume of stuff. It's similar to Gettysburg, the sheer volume of rounds fired, and just from both sides, it's immense. So relics of war, just like what you'd find on Civ War battlefields, still relics of war in many World War II battlefields.
Yeah, I don't even know. I've never been. I can't wait. Someday I'd love to go over there and walk those beaches. But, I mean, they had mines and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know how millions of them, didn't they? I mean, I don't even know how many.
I think something along the lines of 2 million mines in the Normandy area. But, we're talking about things like liberation of a continent, and that happens with, the theme of the exhibit is allies, and we have items speaking to each of the allied countries. But also, these relics remind us that it's not just allies working together, but it was the force of arms that liberated a continent. Right. There was violence involved in this, and these certainly are a testament to that.
Well, I can add a couple things.
Go ahead, sure, yeah.
The .30 caliber rounds, at least one of them here has got a black tip on it, and that means that indicates that it's armor piercing, where the others are the normal rounds.
Armor piercing round.
Yeah.
By the way, that's all been demilled. That's the next question we're going to get. Are you guys holding live ammunition here? That's all been that's been demilitarized. So no, these are not live rounds, everybody.
That's right.
The curators are smart. We know it. We don't want to be another casualty.
And the clip actually has a local connection. It was found at Omaha Beach by a resident of Gettysburg in August of 1960.
Wow. Wow.
Now, if you go over there today, I don't know if you'd find anything. I'm sure it's pretty well picked over. But
yeah, but there's got to be, with the millions of things that Dan talked about, there's just got to be stuff that's here. Of course, the airborne troops jumped to Pointe du Hoc, and this barbed wire from Pointe du Hoc. Wow, fascinating. Relics from June 6th, 1944. No question about it, for the invasion of France. Be part of the exhibit. Now, this watch has a really special story, and it's unique, I think, among the stories that you guys are going to put there. I really liked it when you shared it. Why don't you, Dan, or Mike, you guys want to tell us a little bit about it? Go ahead.
So the watch itself is not necessarily special because it's just an Army issue watch, but it happened to have been issued to General Eisenhower. And at some point, I guess it was in '43, he went to the hospital to visit a member of his staff who was in the hospital, Sergeant Mickey McKeough. And while he was there, it dawned on him that it was Mickey's birthday, and he hadn't gotten him a gift. So he took off his watch and gave it to him.
So the gift he got was Eisenhower's own military watch.
Yes.
Given to him. Wow. Wow.
And we know that story because it was told to us by Mickey McKeow's daughter, who donated it to us.
Wow. Wow. Personal touch of Dwight Eisenhower, a watch. That's there. And what do we know about him being on the staff? Do we know?
Well, we know there's a 44 angle to the watch as well, even though it was a gift in 43. December 16th of 1944, Sergeant McKeow was getting married at Versailles, as one does.
Wow.
So he was getting married at Versailles, of all places, December 16th of 1944. Eisenhower was there at the wedding, and that was the opening day of the Battle of the Bulge. So Eisenhower had to depart from the wedding and make his way, or start trying to figure out how to...
So you got news, Dan, of the German attack? Like, or you got news or something and had to leave?
He was there on the day of. I don't know if he was physically there when he first got news of it, but he was there on the day of, and certainly that was a very consequential day for the Allies.
Sure.
And Mickey McKeow's bride was also on Ike's staff, was one of his drivers.
All right, okay.
Her name was Pearlie Hargrave, and Ike approved that they could get married during the war.
Well, he had to. He probably had to get past, right? I mean, he had to get the necessary permissions to be able to do that. Wow.
And another interesting thing is we have photos of their wedding. And at the time, they were classified. I guess the Army didn't want to know they were letting people get married at Versailles.
Yeah, because they figure, I guess, well, or is it because the Germans may not have wanted, or, Germans could have got to the staff, found their family members or things like that.
That could
maybe.
be.
Could be another reason why. But that's interesting. Wow, what an interesting history. Yeah. And now we've got, of course, you mentioned, Dan, that the exhibit is going to revolve around allies as well. You were talking about that.
Yep.
And we've got, of course, probably the most noted Allied commander that anybody knows, and that's Montgomery, General Montgomery, the British Army. And boy, I was making a comment to Mike that this thing looked like it just came off the Life magazine press. I mean, it's in wonderful shape.
Yeah.
What can we tell us about this, or Montgomery, or?
So we thought it was important to include Montgomery, Monty, as he's often known in this, to talk about obviously the importance of allies, and he's such a fascinating individual to talk about. We get a lot of questions about him at the site at the Eisenhower farm. He did visit there May of 1957, took him around on a battlefield tour. Monty and Ike had a very interesting relationship. It was strained at times, but victory in Europe does not happen without relationships like this.
Sure.
One of the reasons Eisenhower was Supreme Allied Commander was his ability to manage relationships, work with officers from various nations. Montgomery was pivotal with the planning for D-Day. He was ground force commander on D-Day. He was instrumental in bumping up and expanding the original invasion plan, adding in more resources for it, supporter of adding in additional beaches for it. And then in the drive across Europe, they're having disagreements from time to time. Eisenhower favoring more of a broad front advance, Monty favoring more of a specific focused advance towards certain strategic objectives, but they still had, I think, a respect for each other despite some of the strains from time to time. On a more personal note, Mamie Eisenhower said Bernard Montgomery was her favorite house guest.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Why is that, Dan? Why was General Montgomery her favorite? Do we know why?
I think in Monty, Mamie found perhaps someone who could match some of her spirit, some of her wit, so to say. Monty came in, visited them at the White House on occasion, and he made a comment to Mamie, "This is no Buckingham Palace," and Mamie's response was, "Well, I would hope not." So they did have a good respect for each other, and he was really instrumental as one of his key lieutenants, we might say, in the European theater of operations. So we thought, with talking about the importance of allies, we have the French airdrop leaflet, we have the American items, important to have Montgomery represented with the British as well.
So all of these items will be on display here at 1195 Baltimore Pike at the Museum and Visitor Center, Gettysburg National Military Park, for the month of September, at least, you mentioned, Mike, for 2024, and part of the World War II weekend. Why don't you tell us about that, Dan?
Yeah.
You had mentioned that. We want folks to go out to the Eisenhower farm on World War II weekend. You had a D-Day weekend. You have all these different times that you can go out and see the farm, but these are special times to go out and see the farm. So what do we got planned? What's the date, times? Where can people get information on?
Well, it's our annual World War II weekend event. It happens third weekend of September each year. This year it'll be the 21st and 22nd with evening programs on Friday, September 20th to kick off the event. During the day on Friday, September 20th, the site will be closed to visitation because we have a lot of setup going on.
Yeah.
But that evening, we begin the weekend with a walking tour of Gettysburg National Cemetery, talking about World War II burials there. There's also an evening program at the Gettysburg Visitor Center, talking with Henry Sledge, son of famed World War II Marine Eugene Sledge, author of With the Old Breed.
Wow.
So he's coming to speak about his father. Saturday and Sunday, there will be lots of programming at Eisenhower National Historic Site. We'll probably have 300 or so, or over 300 living history volunteers camped out representing different Allied and U.S. units from 1944, as well as the home front effort in 1944. Lots of great speakers on Saturday and Sunday, including esteemed historian John McManus, as well as John Orloff, who is the lead writer for Masters of the Air, the new Apple TV series on the 8th Air Force in World War II. Just a lot of great stuff going on. And then here at the Visitor Center as well, we'll obviously have this exhibit on display, as well as temporary exhibits from the National Museum of the U.S. Navy and the National Museum of the United States Marine Corps. And all of this is focused on 1944. The theme of the event is 1944, the Great Crusade. And I think with titling it that, we're of course using Eisenhower's words from his D-Day Order of the Day. But our goal is to show that 1944 was more than just D-Day. It was a broad effort requiring lots of different nations, millions of people working together for a common goal of fighting for freedom over fascism 80 years ago.
And we should also tell the viewers that this is all free, right, Dan? The materials that'll be in the Visitor Center will be in the open areas of the Visitor Center. You're going to be out at Eisenhower Farm. They'll be able to drive out there on the weekends and see that. So they can enjoy all of this, and it won't cost anything. And you're going to see and hear some great historic things related to the Second World War. And you want to make sure you get yourself out there. So for more information, they can go to the Eisenhower National Historic Sites website, correct? And what is that, Dan, that we can tell?
It's nps.gov/EISE. Eisenhower National Historic Sites website. We have our full schedule posted there, information on how to visit posted there, details about, if you do want to drive out and park, come on out. There will be some shuttles running that weekend from the Visitor Center for additional access, but come on out and visit us, drive on out, everything's free. It's a great event.
Great, wonderful. I just want to thank you and Mike so much for your time here for our special behind the scenes at Eisenhower National Historic Site here at the Museum and Visitor Center, Gettysburg National Military Park. On behalf of the Gettysburg Foundation, your partner, we thank you and the staff for everything you do out there at Eisenhower. It's easy to forget. You come here to Gettysburg. We've got 2 sites here, folks, 2 national parks here at Gettysburg. Don't forget that, and we need you to come out and visit those places. Help us, help the National Park Service. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share it around, and you can help us, and we appreciate that. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Wayne.
Dan, thanks, Mike. And we're going to look forward to seeing that. And my only regret is I can't help you set it up. I wish I could. So thank you, everybody.